The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with tension. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in rising circular tiers, their attention fixed on the holographic display floating in the center of the room. The image showed a swirling mass of purple and black energy, growing larger by the second. Ambassador Reed of Earth sat quietly in the human section, watching as the mighty warriors of the galaxy argued among themselves. The Blue Guards of Proxima, known for their fearless charges into battle, had just lost their third battleship to the anomaly. Their commander, a towering figure with metallic blue scales, stood with his fists clenched. "This thing mocks us," he roared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "It swallowed our strongest ships like they were nothing." Reed noticed how the other warrior races nodded in agreement. The Stone Walkers of Rigel, the Crystal Fleet of Antares, all of them had tried to attack the anomaly. All of them had failed. The council leader, an ancient being with silvery skin, raised his hand for silence. "This threat grows larger each day. It has already consumed 2 star systems, and our predictions show it will reach populated worlds within 3 months." On the holographic display, the anomaly pulsed and shifted. Scientific readings scrolled past, showing energy levels that made Reed's eyes widen. The thing was getting stronger. "Perhaps," a voice called out, dripping with mockery, "we should ask the humans what to do. They're so good at running away and hiding behind their shields." The speaker was General Cax of the Crystal Fleet, his crystalline body reflecting the light from the hologram. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Reed had heard it all before. Humans were considered the cowards of space. They built ships with triple redundancy systems. They insisted on extensive testing before trying new technologies. They refused to fight unless absolutely necessary, preferring to talk or trade their way out of conflicts. The council leader turned to Reed. "Does Earth have anything to offer? Or are you too afraid to even approach this anomaly?" Reed stood slowly, straightening his simple blue uniform. "We've been monitoring the situation," he said calmly. "And yes, we have a proposal." "Let me guess," General Cax interrupted. "You want to build a wall of shields around it, or maybe study it from a safe distance while it devours more worlds." More laughter, but Reed continued. "The research vessel Prudence is already en route. Captain Walker and his crew have volunteered to investigate the anomaly up close." The laughter stopped. The Blue Guard commander stepped forward. "You're sending a research vessel? Not even a warship? Are you mad?" "The Prudence is specially equipped for this mission," Reed explained. "It has advanced sensor arrays, quantum field manipulators, and yes, the strongest shields we could build. We believe understanding this threat is more important than blindly attacking it." Understanding. General Cax spat the word like it was poison. "While you're taking careful notes, whole worlds could die. This is why humans are considered weak. You hide behind your machines and your studies, while real warriors face danger head-on." Reed looked at the hologram, at the swirling chaos that had already destroyed some of the galaxy's most powerful ships. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the bravest thing isn't charging in. Sometimes it's taking the time to think, to plan, to understand." "Cowards talk," someone shouted from the upper tiers. The council leader raised his hand again. "The humans may approach the anomaly if they wish. Perhaps their destruction will finally prove that this threat cannot be studied or reasoned with. It must be destroyed with force." As the chamber erupted in new arguments, Reed sat back down. He activated his personal communicator, sending a brief message to Captain Walker. Council briefed. "Proceed as planned. Be careful out there." The response came quickly. "Understood, Ambassador. All safety systems checked and double-checked. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Reed looked up at the hologram one last time. Let them laugh, he thought. Let them mock human caution and human thoroughness. Something about this anomaly wasn't right, and if anyone could figure it out, it would be a crew of careful, methodical, cowardly humans. The fate of worlds might depend on it. Captain Tom Walker stood at the viewport of the Prudence, watching as the quantum anomaly grew larger in the distance. From here, it looked like a tear in space itself, its edges shifting between purple, black, and colors he couldn't even name. "Shield status?" he asked, not taking his eyes off the view. "Triple shields at full power," Engineer Jack Roberts replied from his station. "Backup generators primed and ready. We could take a direct hit from a supernova and still have power for coffee." A few crew members chuckled at that. The Prudence wasn't pretty like the warships of other races. Instead of sleek lines and powerful weapons, it was covered in sensor arrays, shield generators, and backup systems. Other species called it ugly. Humans called it thorough. "Any word from the probe?" Walker asked. Science officer Ann Miller looked up from her displays. "Probe 4 is sending back data. The others," she shook her head, "gone, just like everything else that's gotten too close." Walker nodded. They'd launched 5 probes, each one carrying different sensors. Losing 4 hurt. They were expensive pieces of equipment, but that's why they'd sent more than one. Humans always had backups. "Quantum readings are off the charts," Anne continued, her fingers moving across her screen. "But there's a pattern here. Something about the energy fluctuations." The ship's intercom crackled. "Bridge, this is engineering. We're picking up some weird vibrations in the hull. Nothing dangerous, but thought you should know." "Acknowledged, engineering." Walker turned to Jack. "Run a full structural check. I want to know if—" A flash of light interrupted him. A massive crystal fleet warship appeared nearby, its crystalline surface gleaming against the stars. "We're being hailed," the communications officer reported. Walker sighed. "Put them through." General Cax's face appeared on the main screen, his crystal features twisted in what might have been amusement. "Still alive, humans? We came to watch your research vessel's last moments. Surely you'll be running away soon." Walker kept his voice professional. "We appreciate your concern, General, but we're in the middle of important readings." "Perhaps." "Readings?" Cax laughed. "While you take your precious readings, this thing grows stronger. Watch how real warriors handle threats." The crystal ship surged forward, its weapons charging. Energy beams lanced out, striking the anomaly. For a moment, the mysterious entity seemed to recoil. "There," Cax shouted. "You see, this is how." The anomaly pulsed. A tendril of energy shot out, wrapping around the crystal ship. Alarms blared on the Prudence as their sensors went crazy. "Energy spike," Anne shouted. "It's pulling them in." "Can we help them?" Walker asked. Jack's fingers flew across his console. "If we extend our shields." "No, wait. The power requirements would be—" It was too late. The crystal ship vanished into the anomaly, leaving only scattered debris behind. The entire bridge crew of the Prudence fell silent. "Play back those sensor readings," Walker ordered quietly. "All of them." "Something happened when they fired their weapons." "Anne, compare it to the probe data." The science officer nodded, already working. "There's definitely a reaction to energy weapons. It's like the anomaly is responding to them. Defending itself, maybe." Walker studied the replay carefully. Where others saw a mindless destructive force, he was starting to see something else. The way it moved, the way it reacted, there was purpose there. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them we need the quantum harmonic array. The big one." Jack looked up. "Sir, that's still experimental. We've only tested it in labs." "That's why we brought 3 of them," Walker replied. "Plot us a careful approach vector. Minimum power, passive sensors only. If this thing really is responding to threats, let's try not being threatening." As the Prudence slowly moved forward, Walker watched the anomaly pulse and shift. The warrior races thought humans were cowards for being careful, for planning ahead, for having backup systems. But right now, as he watched his crew methodically work through the problem, he knew they were anything but cowards. They were smart, And sometimes, being smart was the bravest thing you could be. Ann Miller hadn't slept in 20 hours, but she couldn't stop staring at her screens. The data from Probe 4 kept showing the same patterns, over and over. It wasn't random. It couldn't be random. More coffee. Jack Roberts appeared beside her station, holding out a steaming cup. Thanks. She took it without looking away from the display. Have you ever watched a heart monitored, Jack? He leaned against her console. Sure. My kid brother was in the hospital once. Beep, 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 all night long. Look at this. She pulled up a new graph. These energy pulses from the anomaly. They're regular, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Jack finished, his eyes widening. The door to the bridge slid open as Captain Walker entered for the morning shift. He noticed his 2 officers hunched over the science station immediately. Found something? He asked, making his way over. Anne nodded eagerly. Captain, I think it's alive. She expanded her display, showing multiple data streams at once. These energy patterns here, they're consistent with biological processes, just on a quantum scale. And look at these reactions. She played back footage of the Crystal Fleet ship's destruction. It's not random destruction. The anomaly's response was targeted, specific, like an immune system fighting off an infection. Walker watched the replay carefully. You're saying we're not dealing with a natural phenomenon. We're dealing with a living creature. A wounded one, Anne added. These irregular spikes in the pattern, they're like muscle spasms or nerve misfires. Something's wrong with it. Jack straightened up. The quantum harmonic array. Could we use it to talk to it? Anne finished. Maybe. We'd need to modify the output frequency to match these patterns. It would be like making our ship's energy signature sound friendly instead of threatening. Walker was quiet for a moment, thinking. A living creature, existing on a quantum level, large enough to swallow stars. And it was in pain. No wonder it had been lashing out. The ship's comm system crackled. Captain, message from the Galactic Council. The Blue Guards are assembling a battle fleet. They're planning a massive attack run on the anomaly. How long? Walker asked. They'll be here in 6 hours. Walker looked at the swirling mass outside their viewport. If Anne was right, if this really was a living thing, then a massive attack would only make it defend itself more aggressively. More ships would be destroyed. More lives lost. Jack, how long to modify the harmonic array? The engineer ran some quick calculations. 3 hours for the first one. We've got backups if it doesn't work. Anne, can you be certain about these patterns, about your theory? She met his eyes. Captain, I've quadruple-checked every calculation. I'm as sure as I can be without actually talking to it. Walker nodded slowly. Other races mocked humans for their caution, their endless checking and rechecking. But that attention to detail might have just helped them understand something no one else had even considered. Start the modifications, he ordered, and send a message to the council. Tell them. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Tell them we may have made first contact with a new form of life and request they delay any military action until we can attempt communication. They won't listen, Jack said quietly. They'll say we're being cowards again, trying to avoid a fight. Maybe, Walker agreed. But we have to try. Because if we're right about this, attacking it would be worse than a mistake. It would be murder. As his crew began their work, Walker watched the massive entity pulse and shift outside. Somewhere in that quantum storm was a living being. Maybe the first of its kind humanity had ever encountered. And while the warrior races prepared their weapons, his cowardly crew of scientists and engineers prepared to do something far braver. They were going to try to make a friend. Engineering was a maze of cables and equipment. Jack Roberts stood in the middle of it all, making final adjustments to the quantum harmonic array. The device looked like a mess of crystals and metal, with dozens of backup power cells connected to it. 4 hours until the battle fleet arrives. Captain Walker's voice came through the intercom. "How are we looking?" Jack checked another connection. "Almost ready for first test, Captain. We've triple-checked every circuit." "Triple-checked?" A mocking voice echoed from their communications panel. It was General Cax again, broadcasting on an open channel. "While you waste time with your precious safety measures, our fleet grows stronger. Soon we will show you how real warriors handle threats." Jack ignored the taunts, focusing on his work. The quantum harmonics had to be perfect. One wrong frequency and they might make things worse instead of better. "Ready for power-up sequence," he reported, beginning at 10% capacity. The device hummed to life. On the bridge, Anne watched her sensors carefully. "Getting initial readings," she said. "The entity it's noticing us." Everyone held their breath. The massive quantum being shifted, a tendril of energy moving toward the Prudence. "Hold position," Walker ordered calmly. "Keep the shields at minimal power. We don't want to appear threatening." The tendril touched their ship. The whole vessel vibrated slightly. "It's like it's tasting us," Anne said, fascinated. "The energy pattern is different from when it attacked the crystal ship. More curious." "Increasing power to 20%, Jack reported, matching the frequency to those biological patterns we detected." The ship's speakers filled with a strange sound, like music played underwater. The quantum tendril pulsed in response. "It's working," Anne exclaimed. "The entity is matching our harmonic frequency. It's trying to sync with us." Warning alerts flashed on their screens. 3 Blue Guard scout ships had arrived early, their weapons charging. "Human cowards," the Blue Guard commander's voice boomed through their comms. "Move aside and let us end this threat." Walker hit the ship-wide comm. "All hands, brace for possible impact." "Jack, how stable is the harmonic connection?" "Getting stronger every minute, Captain. But if we move or power up our shields, we'll lose it." Walker took a deep breath. If he was wrong about this, if they'd misunderstood what they were dealing with, his entire crew would die. The safe choice would be to raise shields and move away. But sometimes the brave choice meant staying still. "We will not move," he transmitted to the Blue Guards. "This being is alive and intelligent. We are in the middle of first contact procedures. If you fire on us, you risk destroying the historic moment of peaceful communication." "Peaceful," the Blue Guard commander laughed. "It has destroyed entire star systems." "Because it was hurt and confused," Walker replied. "Because everyone attacked it without trying to understand. We have a chance to." The Blue Guard ships opened fire. Their energy weapons blazed toward the Prudence. But before they could hit, something remarkable happened. The quantum entity moved, its massive form shifting to absorb the attack. More than that, it moved to protect the Prudence. "Energy patterns are stabilizing," Anne reported excitedly. It's defending us." The Blue Guard ships backed away, confused. On every screen and speaker, the strange underwater music grew stronger. Patterns of light danced across the ship's hull, matching the harmonics they were producing. "Send to all ships in the Council," Walker ordered. "We have established preliminary communication with the entity. It is responding peacefully to non-aggressive contact. Request immediate cessation of all military action." As the message went out, Jack allowed himself a small smile. They'd done it. While everyone else had been preparing for war, their cowardly approach of careful study and peaceful contact had achieved what no weapon could. They hadn't just avoided a fight. They'd made a connection. And in doing so, they might have just saved countless lives, both human and quantum. The bridge of the Prudence had never been so quiet. Every crew member watched in amazement as patterns of light danced across their viewport, matching the pulses from the quantum harmonic array. The entity's enormous form had wrapped partially around their ship, not threateningly, but almost protectively. "Translation matrix is online," Anne announced softly, as if afraid to break the moment. "Converting quantum pulses to audio and visual patterns now." The main screen filled with swirling colors that somehow felt meaningful. The strange underwater music change, becoming more complex, more structured. "It's beautiful," Jack whispered from his engineering station. He triple-checked the harmonic array's stability, and now even he had stopped worrying about backup systems for a moment. Then the colors began to form patterns, simple shapes at first, circles, lines, spirals. The crew watched as these basic forms gradually became more complex, more organized. "It's learning," Anne said excitedly. "It's figuring out how to communicate with us by watching how we react to different patterns." Captain Walker stepped forward. "Can we send patterns back?" "Yes, sir. The harmonic array can transmit as well as receive." Walker nodded. "Show it our ship. Simple diagrams first, then more detail." The technical team worked quickly, feeding simple schematics of the Prudence into the translation matrix. The entity's response was immediate. The lights pulsed brighter, and new patterns appeared on their screen. "Look at this." Anne pointed to a new set of readings. "These energy signatures. They're changing to match our ship's power systems. It's not just seeing our diagrams, it's understanding how our technology works." Suddenly, the screen filled with a new image, a vast structure of light and energy, impossibly complex yet somehow familiar. That's its own body," Jack realized. "It's showing us what it really is." Anne's fingers flew across her console as she analyzed the image. "It's a quantum life form, millions of years old. These patterns here, they're like wounds or scars. And this," she pointed to a pulsing distortion. "This is recent damage from the weapons that were fired at it." The image changed again, showing the entity's encounter with the various attack fleets. But now they could see it from its perspective. Each weapon's blast like a burning needle, each destroyed ship an act of desperate self-defense. "It never meant to destroy anything," Walker said quietly. "It was just trying to stop the pain." New patterns formed on the screen. Stars, planets, and swirling galaxies. The entity was showing them its journey, how it had traveled through space for eons, peacefully observing, until it encountered the warrior races who shot first and asked questions never. "Send a message," Walker ordered. "Show it that we understand, that we want to help." The technical team transmitted images of healing, of repair, of peaceful cooperation. The entity's response was immediate. The lights around their ship brightened, and the pain patterns in its self-image began to fade slightly. "Energy patterns are stabilizing," Anne reported. "The random quantum fluctuations are decreasing. It's calming down." Just then, the long-range sensors beeped. The main battle fleet was approaching. Dozens of warships from the warrior races, all armed for maximum destruction. But Walker smiled, because now they had something the warriors didn't: understanding. They knew this wasn't a mindless destroyer of worlds, but an ancient, peaceful being that had been attacked out of fear and ignorance. "Send everything we've learned to the Council," he ordered. "All of it. The translation protocols, the biological data, the historical record. Show them what happens when you take the time to understand instead of rushing to attack." As his crew worked, Walker watched the quantum entity continue its dance of light and energy around his ship. The warrior races had mocked humans for being too careful, too cautious, too cowardly to face this threat. They'd never realized that sometimes the greatest courage is having the patience to turn a feared enemy into a friend. The battle fleet appeared from hyperspace like a wall of steel and crystal. 50 ships, representing the most powerful warrior races in the galaxy, all with their weapons primed and ready. 1 minute until they're in firing range, the tactical officer reported. Captain Walker stood calmly on his bridge. Behind the Prudence, the quantum entity pulsed with nervous energy, its patterns showing clear signs of distress at the approaching threat. "How's the healing procedure coming, Jack?" Walker asked. In engineering, Jack Roberts made final adjustments to the modified harmonic array. "Ready, Captain." We'd retune the quantum frequencies to match its natural healing patterns. But he hesitated. We'll have to drop our shields completely. The harmonics won't penetrate them. The battle fleet is hailing us, the communications officer announced. Walker took a deep breath. Put them through. The main screen split into multiple sections, showing the commanders of various warrior races. The Blue Guard commander spoke first. Move aside, humans. Your foolish attempts at communication have delayed us long enough. This threat ends today. You don't understand, Walker replied. We've established contact. This being is intelligent and peaceful. It only fought back because it was attacked and injured. We can help it heal. More cowardly excuses, General Cax of the Crystal Fleet sneered. This monster has destroyed entire systems because it was in pain. Anne spoke up from her science station. Look at these readings. We can prove it's a living creature, and we can help it. You have 30 seconds to move your ship, the Blue Guard commander growled, or we will destroy you along with it. Walker turned to his crew. Final system check. Are we ready? Jack's voice came through clear. Harmonic array at full power. Translation matrix stable, Anne added. Recording systems online. Another officer reported. Everything that happens here will be documented. Walker nodded. Send to all ships. The Prudence is engaging in a medical procedure with a newly discovered life form. Any interference will be considered a violation of Galactic Council First Contact protocols. 10 seconds to firing range, Tactical reported. Drop the shields, Walker ordered. Begin healing sequence. The Prudence's shields flickered and died. The ship seemed naked and vulnerable before the massive battle fleet. Several warrior commanders laughed at what they saw as final proof of human cowardice. But then the harmonic array activated. Beautiful patterns of energy flowed from the Prudence, matching the quantum being's natural frequencies perfectly. Where before there had been chaos and pain in its form, now there was harmony and healing. The entity's response was immediate and stunning. Its entire vast form lit up with patterns of joy and relief. The wounds in its quantum structure began to close, its erratic movements becoming smooth and graceful. Energy patterns stabilizing across all frequencies, and reported excitedly. The healing is working. The battle fleet commanders watched in shock as the supposedly destructive monster transformed before their eyes. Gone were the violent swirls of angry energy. In their place was a magnificent being of light and order, its form now clearly that of a living creature rather than a chaotic storm. The entity extended tendrils of pure energy, not to attack, but to create beautiful patterns in space. It was dancing, celebrating its freedom from pain. By the stars, one of the warrior commanders whispered. Message from the Council. Communications announced. They're ordering the fleet to stand down. They want all data on the healing procedure transmitted immediately. Walker smiled. Send them everything. And prepare a full report on proper first contact procedures while you're at it. As the battle fleet slowly backed away, the quantum being wrapped itself gently around the Prudence. Through their translation matrix, they received a pattern that needed no interpretation. It was a thank you, pure and simple. The humans had succeeded where the warriors had failed, not through force of arms or brave charges, but through patience, understanding, and the courage to remain true to their careful, methodical nature. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council looked very different now. Where once there had been only rows of seats and display screens, now a beautiful pattern of quantum light danced across the ceiling. The healed entity had chosen to make its home near the council station, its peaceful presence a constant reminder of the lessons learned. Ambassador Reeb stood before the assembled representatives, concluding his report on the Prudence's mission. Behind him, Captain Walker, Science Officer Miller, and Engineer Roberts sat quietly, still tired from their long debriefing sessions. And so, Reed finished, what we thought was a threat to civilization was actually one of the oldest and most peaceful beings we've ever encountered. All that needed was understanding and help. The council leader rose from his seat. We have reviewed all the data from your mission. The translation protocols, the healing procedures, everything. He paused, his silvery skin reflecting the quantum lights above. It seems we owe humanity an apology. General Cax shifted uncomfortably in his crystalline form. We may have misinterpreted certain human traits. You called us cowards, Reed said calmly, because we prefer to study before acting. Because we build backup systems and safety protocols. Because we'd rather communicate than fight. And yet, the Blue Guard commander spoke up. Your cowardly ship accomplished what our entire battle fleet could not. Perhaps we have misunderstood the nature of courage. The quantum entity pulsed gently overhead, its patterns showing agreement. Through the translation matrix they'd all learned to understand, it shared images of its long journey through space. It showed them the many civilizations it had encountered, some peaceful, some warlike, but none that had taken the time to truly understand it until now. The prudence succeeded, Walker added, standing to join Reed. Not because we were braver or stronger than anyone else. We succeeded because we were careful, because we observed and learned before acting, because we weren't afraid to take our time and do things properly. And Miller stepped forward, displaying new data on the main screens. We've learned so much from our friend. Its quantum nature gives it knowledge of space and time that we're only beginning to understand. And because we chose to help instead of harm, it's willing to share that knowledge with all of us. The council leader nodded solemnly. In recognition of humanity's achievement, we are establishing new protocols for unusual phenomena encountered in space. All potentially living entities must be approached with research vessels first. Communication attempts must be made before any military action is considered. You're making cowardice official policy. Someone called from the upper tiers, but this time there was no laughter, only thoughtful silence. No, Jack Roberts spoke up, surprising himself with his own boldness. We're making intelligence official policy. Being careful isn't being cowardly. Being thorough isn't being weak. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take your time and think things through. The quantum entity pulsed in agreement, creating a beautiful display of light and energy that made everyone gasp. Through the translation matrix, it shared its new name for humans, the wise ones who listen. As the council session ended, Reed watched the various representatives talking among themselves. The warrior races were discussing modifications to their ships, adding research equipment and communication arrays. The Crystal Fleet was consulting with human engineers about shield harmonics. The Blue Guards were reviewing first contact protocols. Everything's going to change, isn't it? Walker asked quietly. Reed nodded. They called us cowards because we didn't match their idea of what bravery looked like. But true courage comes in many forms. Sometimes it's charging into battle. Sometimes it's waiting, watching, and trying to understand. Above them, the quantum entity continued its peaceful dance, a living reminder that in the vast mystery of space, the truly brave were those who dared to be careful, who had the patience to be thorough, and who found the courage to be kind.